Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Third Half podcast by the FCS Live team. I'm Jared Klepp along with Gerard Iscani, your host tonight. Gerard, we have yet another exciting pair of interviews tonight for everyone watching.
It's definitely a sweet duo. I can't wait to hear all the questions and answers that we get tonight.
Well, in the preview of what's to come this weekend, we did this last week already, but this weekend, today specifically, we're looking at the Grand Rapids Ole hosting Detroit Imperial semifinal match. And so our very first guest we bring on today, please, everybody, welcome to the show, Michael Forbes, goalkeeper and court player for Detroit Imperial. Michael, thanks so much for joining the show tonight.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
So, as I mentioned, goalkeeper and court player, you've gotten on the court once this season, right? Was that the first time on the futsal court during a match for you?
Officially, yeah, I think it would be outside of a couple stints here and there during some friendly games. I think first official match under the Imperial badge. Yes, sir.
Wow. How about that? And what was that experience like being on the court instead of between the pipes?
Definitely against a quality team like Ole, it was an experience. I opened, a little bit. I've been somewhat introduced to that kind of speed of play, obviously with some of the international stuff that we've done. And, it's always different, though, actually stepping on the court, and always gives me a new respect for every court player, because it's like, man, I need to go back to making sure I train my lungs, because, especially with a court like that, it's a challenge sometimes. So
yeah.
It was definitely really fun. And a little bit of give away a little secret. I've been training field a little bit more just because I picked up a finger injury a couple weeks ago. And so, for the last 2 or 3 weeks ago, I was doing a little bit extra field stuff here during our trainings. And definitely the speed of play takes a little bit to get accustomed to. But then once I did, and then going back in the goal, definitely was like, okay, this is, it's kind of fast forward, slow it down a little bit. Definitely a nice fit, nice little addition to the experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of getting ahead of ourselves just a little bit here, but what I know this is something that you've been wondering.
Yeah,
about. Do you want to ask a question?
Yeah, I got so many questions for you because throughout the entire season, I thought you were phenomenal in goal, and I always thought the offensive presence that you had, like what you brought to the game. So I know you haven't checked out the stats yet, but for all our fans, go check out the stats. Michael Forbes is our most offensive proficient goalie in the league.
Two goals,
3 assists,
Nice.
Solid, right? And we were looking at some different game film and looking at clipping some of the goals that you had this season, which was really fun to watch. And I think about that impact that you have on the game offensively. When we saw you in the field against Ole, you didn't have that same level of impact that you do as a goalie. What do you think it was that prevented it?
I definitely can fully agree there, especially watching the film back was even a little bit painful because of the standard that I'd say I hold myself to in regards to operating on the field, especially through the experience that I've gathered from being a fly keeper. There's certain rotations and just IQ kind of intangible things that you have to be able to do on the rapid fire. And I think a little bit of nerves, honestly, and just because, it was first time really being on the field, and going into it, I hadn't had the best of preparation for a game that I usually should. So I think just subconsciously, I definitely had a couple of things weighing on me.
Yep.
And always the want to perform, I suppose, as well, especially knowing that it's okay, this is, a rival game, and a bunch of the other little subconscious things that go into it.
Yep.
Well, like I said, it wasn't my best performance, and I think we all, like you said, the impact was definitely not as felt as it usually would be in goal.
So one of the things that I've seen so many times when you fly as a keeper and you have this great impact offensively is that defensively you all lose your structure unless DePoche's on the field with you when you're flying, because he has a great tendency to stay back. And so one of the things I'm curious about, if you get the opportunity to play in that position, actually the defensive element you add being in the field. That's the part that I think is really like, what defensively do you think you could add to the field as an outfield player?
Absolutely. That's a great point to bring up, especially speaking to Davide's soccer IQ or futsal within that manner. I do feel the same, and it's similar to how I feel the speed of play gets slowed down going back into the goal, viewing it from that standpoint of being, the furthest most back point of view.
Yeah.
I do think that defensively, working alongside of Davide would be probably the best for me and my abilities, just because, the fantastic player like that, it's very easy to kind of find your role and not overdo in some ways. And I do feel as if my intelligence coming from the back would be a big bonus on the defensive end. And I'm more of a physical player, I'd say, than
Mm-hmm.
most,
Mm-hmm.
especially like statue wise and how I like to play the game. So I think when I can hone in on those attributes that I have and use them to my advantage, I feel like I do provide a nice impact on the defensive side of the ball for sure.
Well, let's go back for a moment. I want to ask you some questions about your, how you guys came into this year, a little bit about last year, even some of your previous FCS experience. I mean, for those of you that don't know, Michael Forbes has been a part of FCS, maybe since the first league. Honestly, I don't quite remember.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, probably, yeah. So we'll have a few questions with that. But first, I want to go back even further. This question actually comes from the chat from Jennifer. When did you first start playing futsal, and how did you get into that? And maybe tell us a little bit about your sport history. I'm assuming you didn't start with futsal because most people don't.
No, absolutely not. A bit all over the place, honestly. So, okay, how long of a story do we want here?
The whole story. Yeah, the whole
all
thing.
right, let's do it a little bit, because then it's going to tie into how I started playing football or soccer in general.
Yeah.
So growing up, played every sport, very athletic kid, baseball, football, basketball, whatever it was. And then I ended up having a shoulder injury in high school that prevented me from continuing baseball. Played football for my freshman year, but I was a transfer student and didn't really like football that much, especially with the intensity that it was played at my school. So funnily enough, I had downloaded FIFA 15 on my laptop and started playing FIFA, first time ever. And I really liked Manuel Neuer. I was watching the goalie position. I was like, dude, that's sick. That's really cool. And so I bought a soccer ball, and I was luckily enough to live across the street from my middle school / high school. So middle school's here, high school's here, big field. And so I would just walk up there and kick a soccer ball around, no technique, no nothing. And
Wow.
I ended up just running into some guys who were up there kicking the ball around. And I was like, yo, can I play goalie? And they said, sure. And just innately had some, some good saves or whatever it might be. And they invited me to keep coming back and play goalie for them. And that group of guys is actually my best friends to this day. Those are like my brothers now.
Wow.
And that is how I got into playing soccer, is literally just from that one day I happened to walk up on the field. And then, so that was first time I ever played soccer, is when I was 16, is when I first picked up a ball.
Wow.
And
well, I do got to say, that's an excellent way to get into a group of pickup soccer, is offering to be the goalie.
I know the goalie. Yeah,
that's
that's
how many times is it nose goes, right? I don't. So I'm sure they welcome you with open arms, man. That's awesome.
No, it's not for me.
It's not for you.
No, it's not.
It says your name.
I understand it's not for me.
Oh.
So I'm at the facility.
That's all right.
Yeah, and after that, I started playing. I started playing club, and it was always, never had much field experience or kind of footwork experience at all. But every coach was like very natural athlete kind of ability. So it was, goalkeeper works in that facet. And I went to college, played schoolcraft, and that's what I was first introduced to, kind of the 5v5 version of futsal. And then that is, I think, a year after college. So I was thinking 2019, 2020 is when I started going to like a pickup soccer type of thing at this random place in Farmington, and it was futsal. And that was the first time I'd ever played futsal. And that's where I met Davide, I met Francois of Midwest, and a couple of the other kind of OG characters from the futsal scene here. And that's when I started playing with Midwest, is probably 2019, 2020. And that's when I was first exposed to futsal. And then I'd say it was funny. The first, I think within my very first ever official futsal match was in Atlantic City with Midwest at the regionals for East Coast. And it was just straight in the deep end. And I had,
right away.
I didn't even know the rules fully. I didn't know anything. My feet were terrible. It was just thrown in. But since then, it's been a lot of growth and a lot of learning and meeting a lot of great characters who have added some incredible intangible value to my experience as a player and just my life in general. So it's been coming up 5 years now, I'd say, futsal,
Yeah.
but I'd say in a serious manner, 2 or 3 of serious futsal play.
Gotcha. That's awesome. That's really cool. I love that you went, into
That's
the
why
background and everything. Yeah, no, that was great.
Yeah, I love it.
That was great. It wasn't too much. It was great. We got to learn a lot about how you kind of got into that sport and how you got into the place you are. And that leads me to my next question, which is, you have been playing in the FCS for a while, right? You've been, this was the league that you were introduced to futsal in, essentially. Like when Midwest was playing, it was FCS. So tell me a little bit about what your experience was like in the FCS building up to this year.
Definitely an interesting pleasure, I would say, is the first words that come to mind.
Okay.
Because I'm very grateful for this league creating a space for the sport to grow. Because there's not really anywhere else to play outside of this league and NFPL. So very appreciative for it, firstly. And the competition has changed a little bit over the years, as more characters, more players get added to it, different styles of play, different techniques. Ole coming over from NFPL. I think I'm very satisfied with the linear progression of how everything's gone so far. I think the level of play, the IQ style of play, even just, the number of players on rosters, like everything is, I'm very satisfied. I don't have many complaints about it. And it's it's a growing, and anything's going to have growing pains associated along with it. And I don't feel as if anything's been outside of the context that, in a couple of years we'll look back and be like, oh yeah, growing pain for, something to progress. So I don't think there's anything really that sticks out too much. Obviously, of course, not negatively, but even, there's the good things about it, but I feel my expectations for it, everything's been in alignment with that, I'd say, is as the league grows, as skill grows, et cetera, very satisfied with everything that's going on.
Cool.
Awesome. One of the things you mentioned was that it's only been the last 2-3 years that you've gotten really serious about futsal. What changed for you?
I think being introduced to a higher faceted level of thinking within the play. And so for me, for example, going back to 11s is almost painful sometimes, because once the speed of play is just almost in a dopamine way of like, there's so many things, there's so many reactions, so many decisions to be made. And it's, for me, it's very satisfying, the speed of play.
Yeah.
Especially as a goalkeeper. I mean, going from futsal goalkeeper to 11v11, I mean, if you make 10 saves in 11v11, it's like, whoa, this guy, and 10 saves in futsal, it's like, oh, this is like the first 10 minutes, like. Wow.
So that, as well as, I guess partially it being one of the things that I decided to hone in on more, as well as just the encouragement from some of my friends like Coastal Wells, Dobby Day, of people who are more tenured in this field, seeing me play. Even Robert Damron, he's the goalkeeper for Futsal Factory. He's one of my good friends. Having these players who are well tenured within this sport, and I've seen a lot of playing experience and have a lot of playing experience themselves. Having their voices be an encouragement and kind of tell me that, hey, this isn't just a random thing that you picked up. You're quite talented at this, and I feel like this is something you should pursue based off of my experience in this field. And hearing that from people that I trusted a lot and I value their opinions highly definitely helped spur me on into being more devoted, into putting my time and effort into honing this craft. And I'm very, very grateful for, obviously, those people have given me the little nudge that I needed to become more serious, because it's opened a lot of doors. So that's probably the main reason why, as I fell more and more in love with the sport of futsal, and out of love for the 11s and that speed of play, combined with the gentle encouragement from, like I said, these people who are more tenured in this field, definitely culminated into, right, let me kind of lock in a little bit more and see what I can do with this.
Yeah, that's awesome. And go ahead.
So when you say you lock in more, like, what's different? So look back 3-4 years ago and then to now, what's different as far as like your focus and like practice training, etc.?
Definitely daily touches. Daily touches are a big thing that I slacked on for a lot of my soccer career, because I was always playing catch up, because I started at 16. So, even the kids I coach, they have more time on the ball than I do.
Right,
so
yeah.
daily touches, and then just the studying of the game in general is a lot of the time. I know I don't really watch Netflix. I don't watch shows that much. If I'm on YouTube, man, YouTube has so many futsal games. Anybody out there, if you're bored, want to watch high level futsal, go on YouTube. Like anything you want. They have every World Cup game. There's just anything, man. They got the clubs from South America, from from Europe, and it's just a seriousness within watching it, like watching futsal with intent of high levels. It's not sitting back, kicking back, watching the game. It's okay, where are his feet at when the striker's there? What does he do when this happens? And really trying to identify some of the mental habits that you can pick up on some players who have established themselves at a higher level, and then taking note and then trying to replicate, I suppose. If it works, if it works, it works. So I think taking the mental aspect of the game more seriously has been one of the main things that I'd say has changed, because I've always played plenty of, I'll get the groundwork in regardless. I'll whether it's an indoor, if it's playing 11s, playing futsal on a weekly basis, I put in the hours plenty forever. However, I think the biggest change is definitely the mental intention of how I train myself off the outside of just putting in the physical groundwork.
Thank you for that answer, that insight there. We got a question from the chat, and then we're going to ask you some questions kind of about this season and how you guys kind of got into this season and how it's been so far. Question from the chat: what is the biggest lesson you've learned in? Sounds like you've had some international trips. What's some of the biggest lessons you've learned in your futsal experience?
It's going to sound, some of the biggest lessons I've learned are also sounding the most cliche, I'd say. However, composure is always key. There's been a couple moments in my career where, I haven't had enough composure to handle the situation. And I have to reflect upon those as, learning lessons. Of course, you never know the price of a lesson until you've already paid it. So some of the biggest things, so that's one of them for me, is definitely composure. And you are your habits, regardless of whatever you try and do, whatever you instill. Like we are creatures of habit. Whatever behaviors you instill within yourself in your time off is what will externalize itself under pressure, under the spotlight. And that's there's no avoiding it, there's no going around it. It is what it is. And however ugly your habits are, that's how ugly they will be when they are on show. And that's something that I fell victim to. I feel as if, even some of my teammates, and it is, it's one of those big lessons that especially with a game like futsal, when it's very, it spotlights almost on every player, because it's 5v5 and it's very, you
can't hide. You can't
hide.
Yeah.
So I think some of my biggest lessons for the takeaways are, composure is key, and you are absolutely a creature of habit. And whatever you put in is going to be your outlook, or is going to be your output, and there's no avoiding it. So if you can go into an event, a game, a practice, well assured that you've put in the time and effort, your subconscious will respect that. The universe is going to respect that, and your outcome will be as such. So I think those are two of the biggest lessons that I've taken away, from cliche as they might be. But sometimes, like I said, it takes a real, in-person teaching of it to have an understanding of it.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, it's really interesting, right? So one of the biggest opportunities for Detroit Imperial is the composure, I would say, like that mental aspect of the game. But in all of my experience watching them, I've always thought that you're incredibly composed. And so why do you think that as a fan, as a commentator, like, I'm not necessarily seeing that lack of composure from you, but you're feeling it?
I think in the manner of, I'm sure from the outside, kind of third person POV, like you're saying, it looks like it can look composed. However, when my brain's going 1,000 miles an hour, but I'm exhibiting like 50, it's like it still looks like I'm going pretty fast, but in my head, there's other things. And I suppose retrospect is always, or hindsight, excuse me. Yeah. Hindsight's always 20. And so it's looking back at game film, looking back at situations, and having the luxury of having time to really analyze a situation, and then have a better understanding of, okay, maybe the ball should have went there. I should have fake stepped here, etc. Stepped on it with that foot, whatever it might be. I think reflecting upon those then kind of gives you the awareness of, okay, maybe I wasn't most composed in that moment, because me in my relaxed, composed state now is identifying things differently than I did in that moment.
Yeah.
So how can I start to try and achieve this level of clarity while I am in that pit of fire? So that's why
Yeah.
I'm very detail oriented, and I'll be very articulated with going back and watching. I'm like, okay, that wasn't as composed as it might have came across, because if I may say I chose option C because option C was A in that moment. However, I'm sitting here, I'm like, okay, there was A and B right there. Why didn't I see those? So even if so I can, there's just going through with a finer comb, I'd say. It's maybe there's a the between the levels that we're seeing.
Yeah. So take us back to last season, end of last season. You guys win the FCS, right? Detroit Imperial, first
season
as Imperial. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so first season as Imperial, win the FCS. You guys beat Midwest United in the championship. You come into this year defending FCS champs. Kind of unique. There's actually another team that is defending champs in their own league, Grand Rapids Ole, which is who you guys are about to play. We'll talk more about that later. But coming into the season, coming off of this, FCS, as the defending champs, what were the expectations like coming into this year for Detroit Imperial?
Expectations, I would say, are obviously always to try and promote the growth of whatever players that we have at the moment, and obviously to win it. However, I don't think there was too much of an expectation placed on winning every single game. And I only mean that in the context of there was a lot of different endeavors that the club had going on at the moment. So, or even throughout this course of the season, as you guys have noticed and noted on from the differences in personnel from game to game throughout the season. So I think a lot of the emphasis was on growth as a club and as a culture together, especially it being the second season for us. Hopefully to congeal more within our club and within the faces that we have around. So yeah, I'd definitely say the emphasis was placed on just growing our IQ and growing our, as I said, our ability to play together, regardless of being able to interchange a couple of key pieces here and there. So outside of, because obviously everybody wants a result every game, but I do think it's okay to slightly take a little bit of a step back and have a slight, a little bit wider gaze down onto what's happening on the time scale of, a year or 2 years, not necessarily just like the couple months that the season is.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm going to stick with, growth is probably the biggest, as boring as the answer as it is. I say growth is the biggest thing that we emphasized overall.
How have you felt like this season? The regular season's already completed now. You guys just have the playoffs, the semifinals coming up. How has this season either met or not met the expectations of your club and you personally?
Well, I'd say me as a person and plethora, if not all of my teammates, have grown individually and as skilled technical individuals on the court. So within that regard, I feel like it's been a success. We're in the playoffs. We have a chance to fight to defend our title. So objectively speaking, not too many things to complain about. Especially with the international time that we've been graciously afforded, I think that those experiences have also grown or allowed us to grow into kind of whatever the final picture might be. Those experiences definitely helped us out. So I'm grateful. I wouldn't say satisfied, but I am somewhat content with what the season has delivered. Especially during the tail end, coming back from Costa Rica, I feel as if a lot of the guys were able to up their level a lot during that time, and being exposed to certain levels of play and certain ideas, stuff like that, has been a catalyst. So I do think that I'm pretty satisfied / content with how we're turned out right now. So like I said, objectively speaking, can't complain about too many things. We got a big game Saturday, and the rest is how we're going to make it. So not too mad.
What would you say are, if you had to pick out like the highest moment of the season so far, and like the lowest moment. What would you say to that?
Okay, lowest moment, I'm gonna say losing against Ole at Ole. I'm gonna say the 2 games against Ole are my tied lows, just because it's
Okay.
those are always tough ones. Especially the result for being at home. I think that might be a low, but it's okay. You gotta embrace it as it goes. You gotta take them on the chin and get back up. So not in the not pessimistic way, of course, at all, but definitely I think to take note and observe. That's probably one of the lower ones. And then of the highs. So to be honest, I feel a bit skewed because of the experiences I had overseas. As it was really hard for me to come. That's one of the things I struggled with the most, is coming back and kind of readjusting to the differences within kind of even just lifestyle, because it was very, very interesting to be somewhere and just only be playing futsal and only focused on futsal. So coming back definitely kind of skewed my bias a little bit, but I do think, I can't remember exactly who it was against, but there was one game, man, and there was one game we played, and we gotta win it. I honestly, for the life of me, cannot remember who it was against. But we played a game at home, and it was without a couple of we didn't have Peyton, we didn't have Denny, didn't have a couple of our key figures who we usually look to, and there was a couple of individual performances from some players that just had to step up. And it was, man, the feeling in the locker room after that game was absolutely brilliant. And it was, I can't believe I can't remember who it was against, but just the emotions after that game were unmatched. It was a very nice feeling that we were able to come together and bring home a win like that. And it earned us a crucial 3 points that ended up, as we got into the playoffs off of a goal difference might be. So that was definitely good moment, high moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, one of the things, and I think about this when you talk about your career in futsal and how you've developed so much as a goalkeeper, and it's a question that gets asked. Luke Miller asks this often, and he talks about like national team aspirations. You talked about your friendship with Robert Dameron. He plays on the national team. And I think about the fact that y'all have Emerson Mena on the team, which he's a phenomenal keeper as well. And so, like, long term, I think about how important it is for you to continue to develop as a goalkeeper. In the short term, we've talked about, like, you playing in the field to be able to maximize getting the best 5 players on the court. What's your opinion? What's your take on, like, what's best for you? What's best for the club?
So it's funny. This is actually a discussion, Davide, and I've had a little bit recently due to just kind of me practicing on the field a little bit more in regards of, like you said, what is best for end product for me myself. I have absolutely no issue with doing anything. Like I'm if it's me doing 2-minute shifts to come be a bruiser, step on the ball, lay it off. If it's me playing in goal 5-0, me sitting in goal, whatever it might be, I'll be content and I'll be 100% behind it, whatever it takes us to get to where we need to go. But for me personally, I definitely think I'm a goalie first. That is where I think I deliver the most results and have the most confidence within my ability to impact the game and exude the professionalism that I can instill. And but in regards to Emerson, man, I love having Emerson around. He's so fun. And I think he adds, it's almost like a problem, but it's a beautiful issue to have, because he is so experienced and in a different niched way than I am, because this is a person who's grown up around the game. He has a different culture, a different understanding. So it's somebody I look to learn from, as sharing my experience with. And on his day, man, he's I mean, on every day, of course, but on his day, he's a great goalie. And so me off my game, him on his game. Hey, if he's the better choice, I'm gonna fight tooth and nail, obviously, to be the better choice every single day. And I'm sure he feels the same way. But if on that day, man, I'm a little shaky and he's good, then boom, put him in and throw me on the field, throw me at pivot, throw me at whatever it might be. whatever is going to contribute the most to our success is kind of what I'm going to ride behind. And yeah, it's definitely interesting. A bit of it's raised some complexity. Even having Miguel as well. He's been, he's been, but
Yeah.
it's a beautiful problem to have. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think my role fits in to wherever it might be. Like I said, I feel most confident, and I feel like I exude the most professionalism from the goalkeeping position. However, with the sustained linear progress as a field player, if my impact is felt there and it's needed there, then I have no complaints there either.
Yeah.
So, thought experiment for you, because one of the things I'm curious about is how your time in the field actually helps you to be a better goalkeeper.
Oh man. Oh, dude, it's great. It's even it gets a little rough sometimes because our training level usually can be out of my necessarily realm of comfortability for being on the field sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
These guys are good. And I mean, even these guys, they all got 10 years of ball work on me. And so it's definitely been a lesson to stay within my role when I'm
Mm-hmm.
on the field. However, every moment, I like to think about it like this. If even if I'm going to think about like a video game, if I'm playing goalkeeper and I'm 5-0ing, in order to gain experience and kind of level up within that respect, I have to keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it. Of course,
Mm-hmm.
and I find it faster. It's kind of like, a little XP hack. In order to, you can go and play on the field and you can get 5 times the amount of work, 5 times the amount of reps, the recognition mentally, the reading the game in, and then you can go back and goal. And it's like, okay, I just, I did all this stuff and now I can come back here and I can kind of catalog all of that. And it's like, all right, it's like almost kind of like having a little nerd. I grew up watching Naruto, so there's this moment where Naruto can make shadow clones, and all the shadow clones can learn him. So he gets to do, he can practice a ton of things and then bring all his clones back, and he just got 100x of the experience in the same time. Because and so that's how I feel. That's like the first thing that comes to mind when I think of playing the field.
Love it.
It's just compounding the experience that I could gain through practicing the 5-0 exponentially.
Mm-hmm.
And doing it, especially when we can afford to. I practice. Another beautiful thing about having quality goalkeepers such as Miguel and Emerson on hand is that I get the luxury of
Mm-hmm.
getting against a world-class world-class goalkeeper, and we don't have to sacrifice the level of our trainings because we have some on hand. And so it definitely feels as if it compounds my experience for the fly keeping. It's awesome, and I love to do it because it gets me a bit. And then once I'm like, okay, you guys are too good, I get to go back and goal, and I'm like, all right, comfortable.
Yeah.
So,
That's really cool. I like that that insight there and how that, like you said, how it impacts your goalkeeping play. We just have a few more minutes with goalkeeper Michael Forbes of Detroit Imperial. So if anyone watching wants to ask a question, feel free to put it in the chat. We might be able to get to it. My next question for you, Michael, is let's bring ourselves all the way to this Sunday, right? You guys are going to face off against Ole in Grand Rapids once again. As the number 4 seed coming in to play probably the overall favorites to win it all. I mean, they haven't lost a game this season. They're on a 9-game winning streak. They've been very good at home, particularly. What's it like, coming into this game, particularly with not only the games you've played against Ole this year and those 2 losses that you mentioned as low moments, but also, your team has a history with Ole going back before this year. I mean, you guys played them in the FPL, and you guys, it's. I mean, we can tell watching. There's like an extra energy and sometimes chippiness. Sometimes that comes out. So, what's your outlook like coming into this Sunday's game? Going into Ole's place again, and with all that in mind.
I'd say I love this rivalry. Excuse me, that's a weird word for me. That we've developed, and I kind of feel as if there's a friendly animosity between us two, if that makes sense. Kind of like 2 brothers, that are just all the time. And I love what it does for the culture. I love that we are able to have this type of dynamic between 2 teams that are also functioning at a high level of futsal. I think it's very, very important for the league and even for the players of both teams, just to give each other that extra oomph, the extra drive, train better, do better, even if it's impacting daily lives, sometimes in general, it makes me want to continuously be honed in and making sure that I'm even treating my body right, on a Monday, whatever.
Mhm.
it be. And I think going back into, back into their den, it's good for us. I think we need I think challenge is a fair word, but I don't necessarily view it as a challenge, but I think it's very good that we can go there and reestablish ourselves in the manner that we see fit, because it's easy to identify that this season hasn't necessarily been uh maybe everything that some people from the outside view could ask for, from
Mhm.
our standpoint. But like I said earlier, we're here, we're in the playoffs, we have a chance to fight for our title, and all in all, I think it's cultivated a very good environment between these two clubs, and the fact that we can have, even have a podcast like this to hype up the game between two of the players, like just everything it's doing for the culture is awesome, and I have a great appreciation for like I said, the dynamic that we've been able to develop between these two clubs. So
Yeah.
I'm very excited for it.
Yeah.
So we got a question from the chat specifically about the game and about Ole. Who is on Ole? Who is the most trouble to contain?
Um, hmm. I don't know names. That's the problem. And
Do you know numbers? Because we might be able to help out with the names. Or maybe you
man,
can just be like, hey, there's this one time I was on the court and it was just this guy right here. He's just
if,
All right, I'll rephrase it. How about this? Because
maybe as a goalkeeper. Maybe it's better.
yeah,
Well, you didn't
well,
play.
no,
He played
no, but
goalkeeper once against that.
this is something. Look, Michael, you got to spend some time. Go on the website, look at the stats. We got two of the stats leaders for goals and assists, Sammy Escovel and Davide Depoche. Sammy Escovel, right, is someone that is always having an impact on the game. What do you all do to limit his impact?
I think my hesitation to answer the previous question is also going to tie into my answer of this one, and that being, in the most respectful manner, I have the utmost confidence in every player on my team, naturally,
Mm-hmm.
that I don't think it'll take anything extraordinary, and of course I mean these in the most respectful way. But I'm a firm believer that if you just play solid, good, level-headed defense, uh, we have the quality to, like you said, Sammy definitely has an impact in every game, and his stats,
Mm-hmm.
his stats show that, and he deserves the respect that calls for. However, at the same time, I feel as if knowing that, and knowing that that's a player who has a good strike in the ball, he can hit it with both feet, and he does like to be, not necessarily a facilitator almost, but he's going to be the person that they're looking for to shoot. I think within that, you play smart defense. You don't stay off of him. You don't dive in on challenges, because he can, if you dive in recklessly, he's going to move the ball that little 6 inches and get his shot off. So you don't do anything extraordinary, but you cater to what his strengths are, and
Mm-hmm.
you avoid giving him a free cannon. But even within that, I don't think it's, like I said, I don't think it's doing anything too over the top defending wise. It's just play smart, solid defense. I know, for example, the first goal that he scored against us last time we got there, or last time we played there, it was just bad defending. And it's more all respect to him for scoring the goal. He did the hard work. But it's just things like that. If you can correct the errors like that, I feel as if there's not too much extra curricular work that needs to be done in order to slow it down, at least his impact.
Yep.
So a couple more questions, and then we'll let you go. So if you got any questions in the chat, feel free to put them in there. One thing that I've seen, and we've talked about it before, is Detroit Imperial has definitely looked like a different team at home on the small court and away at larger courts. You guys are going in to play on a larger court again against Grand Rapids Ole. You mentioned the last time you guys played them, it was not, the result at all that you guys wanted. And if we're calling that game, it was definitely not as competitive as a game as we were expecting between the two teams. What do you guys are going to do? How do you view that going into this bigger court on Sunday? How do you guys address that? That we've seen all year with just really two different teams we're seeing depending on court size.
Absolutely. And I do think that's a good observation. Sometimes you got to call a spade as it is. For adjustment wise, I'm without leaking, I guess, too much or bleeding too much into how we've actually tactically adjusted for it. I will just say that there's been an alteration in kind of the physical capacity of how we've been training in order to try to adjust to that. Because I do feel in previous matches that is a little bit of it's definitely a distance change. And as it is with anybody going onto a home court, they have kind of the ins and outs a little bit more ironed down than anybody else will of their home floor. But I do want to make note that obviously we've taken that into account and have prepared specifically in some ways to be able to adjust our game, because here at Sala, the court, while it's still regulation, it's definitely on the smaller side. And so it allows for a slightly different style of play within that small, intricate, really short pass, pop, pop, pop style of play. And while it's still viable on the bigger court, it is obviously it takes a different type of physical demand, and you have to adjust your play style a little bit, whether it's moving the ball in the air, checking into different spaces, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, I definitely do agree that it's two different teams, two slightly different play styles depending on the court size. However, I do feel very confident in how we've slightly adjusted and prepared for this. So.
Yeah.
One of the things I'm curious about, it seems like player availability has been a challenge throughout the season as far as consistency with what players are showing up for every game. Are we at full availability for this game this weekend?
As far as I know, yeah, it's definitely been a challenge through this illness. A lot of our guys have religious callings that they have to take care of, as well as just everybody's got. It's the same story for every team. Everybody's got a life outside of futsal. But with our trips and everything that we had going on, a lot of the guys play for multiple teams. It's not multiple football teams outside of futsal. So I'm very confident in our player pool that we're going to take this weekend. I do think it's a general understanding of the importance of this game, and that we really need to not rebrand, but restamp, I'd say, make sure everybody still understands what Detroit futsal is about.
Gotcha. Last couple questions, and then we'll let you go. The first one is a little bit of a shift. If you had to speak to any aspiring goalkeepers that maybe are watching this, what kind of advice would you give them?
First thing that I got taught, and I'm very glad it stuck with me, goldfish memory. No matter what you do, you must have a goldfish memory, because it is not talked about as much as it should be. Being a goalkeeper is one of the most mentally demanding positions, because it requires you, especially in a game like 11v11, barring for takeaway futsal, at futsal especially. But when you have a situation where you have a great impact within one or two decisions that you have to make, it can bear heavily upon you if you make the wrong decision in that moment. And it's very easy to point to the one person whose mistake is black and white, whereas all of the gray line mistakes that you have from the other field players cultivating that instance in where you were put in the black and white moment. So I would say moving on with confidence, no matter what happens, have the maturity and the confidence within yourself to analyze yourself, call a spade, identify your mistake, and then just, action plan, train it, and move on, keep it going, because, you're not going to quit over one mistake that you make once or twice, 3 times, 4 times, whatever it might be. It's a position that is so demanding of you to wash everything away and continue to be a white blank slate no matter what, because even if you got a dot of red paint on there, it's going to subconsciously affect your next save. and you need to be as prime as awake as you can be every single shot, every single set position you get into, whatever it might be. So I think regardless of your mistakes, who cares if a ball goes through your hands? I don't care. You know what? Go train, kick a ball against the wall 50 times the next day, whatever it might be. It's you got to stay fresh, stay motivated, and stay confident in yourself, because it's very easy to point the finger at the goalkeeper, and it takes the mental load of even, just being sometimes the bigger person of, okay, yeah, it's my fault. And you can even analyze, all right, if the winger didn't lose the ball there and that didn't happen, et cetera, et cetera. You can always do that. But just being able to take the blame, eat it on the chin, and, be mature enough to swallow it, digest it, and keep it going. It's a position that you have to regulate your emotions heavily, and you need to be good at it. And it's something that, take away soccer, take away the ball, it's a great life skill to have, is being able to take in situations and inputs like that are unsavory, and have the blame put on you, and be able to analyze and just move on with it, and not take away from it, not leave the situation with any negative from it. So I think that's one of the best things that goalkeeping has taught me, soccer aside, is is being able to mentally and emotionally digest, and then just keep at full capacity. I think that's one of the biggest things that young keepers should do, is long story short, keep your head up. All the words important before were important, but just keep your head up, and just, goldfish memory, man. That's where I'm at.
I gotcha. Well, last question here. If you had, if someone was asking you, hey, why should I tune in to, the semifinal, Grand Rapids Ole hosting Detroit Imperial, and you looked in the eyes and, and got to tell them, here's why you should watch, what would you say?
I would say it is one of the best exhibits of individual and culminated skill that you'll be able to find. It's a beautiful exhibition, and you will be hard pressed to find a competition with as much passion as we will deliver. And I feel as if it's one of the better things you can occupy yourself with, because you should be able to feel the energy through the screen regardless of where you're at. that's
amazing. I know that we're going to be feeling the energy. We're planning to be there courtside, so we're excited to see you guys there on Sunday I believe it's going to be at MSA Sports Spot in Grand Rapids is where the location will be on Sunday at 5:30. So that game is Sunday, March 23rd, 5:30 p.m. Tune in on FCS Live. You can watch it or come out and see it in person. We should have a good turnout between these teams. Michael, thanks so much for jumping on the call with us and giving us your thoughts about the season and going forward. We really appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Thank you. Blessing to be here. Thanks for providing the environment.
You betcha. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and it's going to be time for Aaron Gamez. Yes.
Gamez.
Aaron Gamez. I asked him when I saw him. I was like, what did I say? Aaron Gamez. He's going to be on the show coming up in just a couple minutes. So get your questions ready, and we'll be right back after this.
Committing a crime so you can try to escape from prison. Bad idea. Going to the pod escape room to play an escape game with your friends. Great idea. Test your skill as an astronaut in outer space. Find Santa in Save Christmas. Or take a vacation to an abandoned island. Just don't get stuck there. The Pod Escape Room. Learn more at thepodlansing.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Third Half Podcast. I'm Jared Klepp along with Gerard Ascani. The Third Half Podcast by the FCS Live Team, sponsored by Ally Marketing and the Pod Escape Room. We just had an awesome segment with Michael Forbes, goalkeeper of Detroit Imperial. As we get ready for their semifinal match against Grand Rapids Ole. And on the other side of the coin, Grand Rapids Ole unbeaten, 9-game win streak. They're looking to meet the expectations that have been set for them and that have been set for themselves as the number 1 seed in the playoffs. And to talk a little bit more about that and the journey of the team getting here to this point in the FCS, we welcome on Aaron Gamez. Aaron, I asked you before, and it's like I've said it both ways, and so now I don't know exactly. Aaron Gamez. Oh, I was wrong. Aaron Gamez of Grand Rapids Ole. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Aaron.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
You bet. So to start us off, Gerard, first question.
First question, we want to hear a little bit of backstory, like, how did you get into futsal? How long have you been playing?
First, I've been playing since I was like 7 years old, soccer in general. Always, started off outdoor, and I feel like that's one of my main strengths is playing outdoor. And then I think I turned like 8 or 9 years old. I went to a place in Grand Rapids called Soccer Zone, and they were playing indoor soccer, and I was like, it was 5v5, and I never seen it. They had like blue tiles on the floor. I'm like, what is this? It's like indoor street soccer sort of, but that's where I got introduced to futsal and Ole too. And they I think, like I say, Ole was like a hot spot when it comes to futsal in Grand Rapids. Like, I think if you've played futsal, at least growing up back then you've at least played for Grand Rapids Ole for at least some sort of time. But yeah, I've been playing with them for about more than 4 years in the men's team. But I would always just get invited to tournaments because Fabian, he knew I was a good player and I was playing for like rival teams in the city. So he would always just invite me on the team just to play with the guys. So it was fun.
Better to have you on the team than on the
Yeah.
opposition, huh?
Yeah, for sure.
That's awesome. We're going to start off with some questions from the chat. Teammate Caesar Alayo says,
Oh my God.
if you had, he said, it's coming, right? If you had to pick 5 of the best 1v1 defenders in the FCS, maybe that's a lot to pick from because there's a lot of games, a lot of teams. So let's just say if you had to, if there's like 2 or 3 1v1 defenders that stand out in your mind, who do you think those would be?
I think he wrote that question for a reason.
I wondered. It kind of seemed like he did.
Yeah, but he's just trying to like get under my skin right now. But one is him because he's like one of my best friends. I grew up playing with him, so
You're gonna give him the answer he wanted.
He knows every move I'm about to do. He knows where I'm about to turn. So just growing up with him, he knows how I play. So it makes it that much easier playing with each other. He knows how to set me up and vice versa. I'll set him up in the perfect position. I know he's going to beat his defender. So that's one I'll say. And I'll say, to be honest,
I would not have thought he's a better defender than you. That's interesting.
not better than me. I didn't say that, but
Gerard is really
no,
nonchalantly. Oh, I didn't think that he was better.
no, let's not go that far.
Setting everyone up, man.
No, but at practice it's really I feel like those are like the toughest sessions we have as a team, you know, at practice, because we are competitive. Everybody wants to be on that first starting lineup, which is why you guys probably notice it. You see Fabian switching the lineups from here time to time, but at the end of the day, you know, that's where you win your spot at practice. Last year, I wasn't on the starting as much. I was playing second line, but I think you know, my dedication and just at practice and putting that into the game showed Fabian like why I should be starting and be more consistent in the first line. But I want to say another good defender, back to that question, in the league. I'll say little Daniel De Leon from Midwest. He's it may seem like that wouldn't be the answer I was going for, because he's like a small guy, but you know, he knows how to use his body to his advantage, and he's been playing futsal for, I'm quite older than him, so I've seen him come up playing for Ole and other futsal teams. So I've seen him, Fikret, and you know, Cesar Martinez on Ole. They grew up, they're like close buddies. So they grew up playing on the same futsal team. When they play together, those guys are unstoppable. Like, they're just like, they would win every tournament they would go to, you know? So it's good seeing them now, like, growing up and still developing their game. And it takes a lot, you know, playing against older guys, and it's just shows how much they've grown over the time. And just that final answer to that question, I want to say, of course, Jeremy from Lansing.
Oh, okay.
That past game, he was it was tough, you know, but like he can't do it all by himself. At the end of the day, it's a team game. But props to him, you know, he plays to the last whistle. I mean, you guys seen it. That game was down to the wire, even with 1 minute left. They had a penalty with a minute left. If they scored that, who knows what would have happened. But shout out to Josh for keeping that penalty out.
All right, so did you watch the game back? You watched the highlights? All right, so what do you think? Was that a should it have been a PK against Luciano?
I can't say that. I want to say it was a 50-50, like 50-50. In my humble opinion. Okay. It was a 50-50.
It seems like a pretty safe
I mean, look, if you're saying 50-50 as an Ole player.
I seen the play. Like he gave the ball. Luciano was trying to receive it, but Josh came out at the same time. 50.
It's tough. Yeah, it's tough.
Gerard likes to give tough questions in the hot seat to our guests.
Look, no, but that's great. One of the things I love. So you said Daniel De Leon. He's so silky smooth as a defender, right? He has this creative element as an offensive player that a lot of times you don't even see the defensive effort. But it's like just like you're talking about, like he has that. And then Cesar Layo, you know, similarly, he's so strong offensively that sometimes you can miss that defensive element. And then Jeremy, same thing. Like, what an incredible offensive talent that I think you can miss it. So I love you bringing it back to futsal's a two-way sport. You know, you don't make a name for yourself being good one way.
The players I mentioned, they play fixo. So they're playing in the back most of the games. And I feel like playing a fixo, like being like, I'll say Sammy Escobar as well. You know, they love controlling the game, bringing the ball up, setting up the plays, and they usually get the most touches on the ball. So it really comes down to how well they perform that game, and that's gonna really decide how the game's gonna go. You know, and I really do think those guys are like key factors to their teams. Like me as well, you know, like I want to say my play style is quite like gritty. Like I'm known for getting into tackles. Like I think I'm like up there for yellow cards in the league. I want to say, that just shows the passion. Like, I'm not scared. I'd never back down from a foul. I mean, the game's already passed, but the last regular season game against Lansing, coach made it clear, like, the game plan was just to keep Jeremy off. Just we're gonna have to shut him down. That was the main message, and I told him straight up, like, hey, just all right, just say less. Like, that'll be my job. And I felt like I did a good job that game, doing 1v1 defending against Jeremy, because like I said, like, playing on these courts, which is like a perfect size right here you guys have at Lansing, it opens the court and the whole game. So, like, as soon as that player on the ball beats their defender, that second defender has to quickly shift over and, like, I want to say double team, but you got to shift over to cover that shot. Jeremy is going to pull the trigger as soon as he beats his defender. So I feel like it's all quick motions, and you got to be into the game where you got to know that's you got to step at that moment.
So what I'm hearing is you're the best 1v1 defender in the league.
I want to say it for myself, but I feel like you see it in the game.
That's what, one of the things, and we talked about this earlier, so going back and watching some of the game film, there was one game in particular that really surprised me, and it was the game against Ginga on the smaller court, because you broke out for 5 goals that game.
Yeah.
And when I think about what I've seen of you as a player, just like what you were talking about, it's really about that grittiness and you always doing what needs to be done at any time on the court, whether it's defensive, offensive. And then to see you in this Ginga game just explode for 5 goals, it's like, whoa, like, what happened? Like, it's almost like a different player.
Yeah, that game in general, I wasn't expecting to score 5 goals, but that's just that just shows to the quality that we have at Ole. It doesn't matter what line is on the court. Each line has, I feel like Fabian's balances every line out so perfectly, where each line has that player where to give the ball to. Like, the first line, usually Sammy Escobar, me, and Chris Mendez usually starting, and we know, like, 1v1s, we got to give the ball to this guy. Guy set him up this play. And every line is just so balanced, That's why at times Fabian, he might tweak something just to see how it's going to work out, But that game, I scored 5, but I feel like I should have scored more, But yeah, it was a good game. It was just back to back. I liked it.
Well, let's take us back for a moment to the beginning of this season, right? You guys, even leading up to the season, you guys come off of, not being in the FCS last year. And I believe this is the first time you guys are in the FCS. You're coming off of, NFPL championship. There's 2 defending champions in the league this year now, you and Detroit Imperial, who you guys are going to face on Sunday. What were the expectations like for your team coming into, the FCS this year?
Expectations coming into the league this year, I feel like we wanted to try a whole different league. We've been playing in the NFPL, I think, the past 2-3, and I wasn't on the team for those 2 years previously, but I just joined back playing futsal this past year, and it's a whole different scenery and even competition. But coming into this league, I thought it was gonna be not like hectic or just like out of control, but like, because we usually go into every season knowing that we're gonna be a favorite to win, because that's just the reality of it. We usually dominate every game that we go into. So it's just not surprising really to me at the end of the day that we went undefeated in the regular season. But we still had plenty of close games. We tied against Midwest, and it's always a battle against Imperial at the end of the day because we've played against them multiple times and in the NFPL. So they know us, we know them, and I think it's just going to be a hell of a game this weekend.
What do you feel like has been, that very first game you guys tied Midwest at Midwest, and then since then there's only been a couple of games where it's only been like a 1 or 2 goal margin. Actually, I think the only games that other than the tie that were 2 goals or less were the 2 against Lansing City. At home it was 1 goal victory, and away it was 2. What was the difference between that first game and then like the rest of the season as you guys, really, 9-game win streak, been kind of in control, it seems like, for almost all parts of all the games that you've played. Was there anything different about that first game? Was it getting used to some things? Did you have different players? And what's that journey been like for you guys, the rest of the year?
I think that first game, we talked about it as a team afterwards. Like, it's better to get those games out the way early in the season. That way, you don't get too frustrated when it comes towards the end. And we really, I don't know, we felt like we were rushing things at first, but like, it was still the beginning of the season, so we're still just fixing our shape and our lineups. And at the end of the day, Fabian, I think he did a good job, like I said, balancing each lineup. And like I said, like every lineup has quality players on it. Like Jair, he's like my favorite teammate to have. Like,
he's fun to watch.
The ball sticks to his feet. Like, I don't think you should have seen him at practice last night. He was just toying with us. I ain't gonna lie. Jair, he's a good 1v1 player, and he's fun to watch. Yeah, but who else? We have, like I said, we have quality, and it doesn't even come down to just the players, the goalies as well, and just having like quality players around you that you wouldn't say are better than you, but that they're up to your quality. So you want to like I said, you're just fighting for that lineup on the spot, because it does affect I want to say a player's morale when you see you're not starting or something when you feel like you should. That's why I feel like I usually say practice like you never won and play like you never lost. That's one thing I like to go by. So it all starts at practice.
Would you say that tie that you guys had at the first game, was that like the lowest moment for you guys all season? Is there another moment that you'd pinpoint and say this was probably our lowest moment?
I feel like it wasn't a low necessarily, but like I said, it's great to get those games out the way earlier, because in that game I did get a red card that we tied to Midwest, and it was close because, like, listen, I got a red card. I think we're up like
you guys were up by I think 3 at one point.
Yeah,
maybe twice. It was 3-0 and 6-3.
We were up by 3 goals. I got the red card. I got a second yellow just for complaining to the ref for not giving me a foul. So I go to the locker room. I get changed. I could have sworn I didn't take more than a minute. I come back out. It's tie game. I'm like, what just happened? So it's just like little things like that where I know I'm that player to get a yellow card. It is just, or like get fouls, but that can affect the whole game. Like I said, like just the game I thought we had it won already. I go to the locker room, get dressed, come out, tie game. I'm like, oh my gosh. And that could really affect the whole game or even the season at that point. But like I said, it was just better to get it out the way, and I feel like that that calmed us throughout the season.
If you had to look back at the season and pick out a moment that seemed to be like a peak moment for you guys season, like this was like my favorite moment of the season so far, this was really critical to our team, what moment would you look back on?
I don't know if I could speak for the team entirely, but like for me in general, I think it was it wasn't even the game that we played against Midwest, the second game.
A 9-1.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, but I think it was the second game against Imperial at our home.
Yeah,
I felt like after that game, we knew like, okay, like this league is ours now. It's ours for taking, and it's just at the end of the day, we know we're gonna get to this playoff position. So now we gotta take advantage, and we know every team is trying to take it from us.
So it felt like watching the game in Futsal Sala, where they went up 3-1, and then after that whole incident with the red card for Depoche, you all come back and dominate that game, and then you all play them at home.
Yeah,
it seemed like a completely different game. Were you all kind of surprised at that?
Yeah. To be honest, like I said, I know when to give a player props, and Davide, that he's so good on the ball. He can play out the backs. Like you swear you have him cornered, double teamed, and he'll find a way out.
Yeah.
And Posta as well, if I'm not mistaken, his name. He's those
solid.
two are really good. So they're just like a solid duo. So we know what they're capable and what they can do on the court. So at the end of the day, we gotta stick to our game plan and just not get distracted or even fall into their game, which we know could be more physical, and especially when it looks like the game's out of reach. But we can't let that get to our head.
You know, it's one of the things. So we talked to Michael Forbes before, and we talked about composure, and it's one of the themes with Imperial. On the opposite end of the spectrum, I think in the entire league, Grand Rapids Ole is the most composed team, the team that doesn't sway in those moments. I know you said you got that red card, you know, and those things happen, right? But you got it from the foul, and it wasn't like a moment where like the whole team kind of like lost composure.
It was just a double yellow.
What do you think it is about Ole that you all do that allows you all to have that mental strength?
I think it was from previous experiences, even that NFPL league. We did have like a lot of games where we would just lose our head, even if the game was already won. I think it's just because we know everybody on the team is good, like just solid. So I feel like we expect so much from each other. Like we don't even like necessarily look for the validation from the coach. We just like, we know we should be doing better individually, and we know our teammates should be finishing that opportunity or not making that foul when we know we're accumulating already. So it's just those little things that we know will affect the game and the season. Because like, let's say last game against Lansing, like what if we got a red card and now someone can't play the semi? So it all comes down to staying composed, and like I said, it comes from previous experience.
You know, you brought up the previous game against Lansing a few times, and it makes me think about you guys coming into that game. You know, no real like you had home court advantage, playoffs like set, and in the post-game interview, I think we talked with Jair, and he kind of mentioned, like, you know, your guys is like, we came here to win this game. We wanted to win this game. Tell me a little bit from your perspective, like, when you guys came into that one, even though everything was set from like a competitive standpoint in the league and in your playoffs and the games that really mattered, you're coming in, you know, and you're like, your perspective on that game, like, even though everything was set, tell me a little bit about that.
Coming in, I ain't gonna lie, like some of our teammates were like really thinking like, is this even a game worth like winning, or like should we like even really try? I want to say, but Fabian is really strict. He was like, we don't throw games. This is a game we're gonna win. Let's just go to their home and send them. Let's not make them go into the playoffs, because it was a win game for them, even though a tie would have put them in.
Yeah.
But we knew like we were just trying to prove a point at that point, like just solidify our spot as top contender and send them packing, even though it was at their home.
Yeah, well, you guys did just that, and of course, Lansing City doesn't make the playoffs, and you guys in that top spot. So you've gone through the whole season. Ever since that first tie, you guys have nine straight wins, playing at home again. I did hear that your home court's going to be not the same that you've played on all year. Is that correct?
Yeah, so we're switching venues, but it's really just to get more fans to show up to the game. HSB, where we're playing the whole regular season, is it's really nice, the court, but we just want more. It's just gonna benefit the whole team, and that way we have more fans to show up and come support. I think it will be good. Like, I don't know if you guys ever seen MSA before, but it's just like 3 futsal courts, so I think we're just gonna make like one big one.
The thing that I was concerned about, honestly, when we first learned of the venue was I've been there before for tournaments, and the court sizes are really small. Yeah. Are they do you know if we're gonna have like a normal full-size court?
Yeah, we'll more than likely use up 2 or 3 of them just to make it perfect length and width. We've done that. I think we're doing the same thing in the NFPL, where as soon as we made it to the playoffs, we'll just switch that playoff game, because we know like those games are going to get filled where those fans aren't going to fit at HSB.
Right.
So it's going to be worth watching, and it'll be better for the fans to come watch, especially there where there's enough.
It's one of the things that we've talked about a few times tonight is kind of like the competition for the lines. Over the last few games, we've seen a lot of changes on the lines. I think one of the biggest reasons is Adrian Diaz is hurt. Lito's been out. Are we going to see them back this weekend?
Unfortunately, I don't know if it's like breaking news, but like Adrian, I think he's done for the season. Sadly, he's like a pivotal piece in that. I want to say that second line with his brother. Like, those two are obviously they're twins. They know each other, but they just play so smooth together. Adrian and him are so good with the and Adrian is just a back post poacher. Like, he'll put it away. It is as easy as it may seem, just chilling back post. It may seem like an easy goal. People call it a tap-in, but a goal's a goal, and he's one of those guys that is just efficient when it comes to being back there and putting the ball in the back of the net. So that's a huge miss, and we all wish him a.
And what about Lito?
Lito, I think he's just recovering from injury, but I think we'll see him this weekend.
So will we see some of the similar lines that we've seen the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, for sure, but you never know. I just
might switch it up.
He might listen to what's happening tonight and be like, just because they said that, I'm going to switch it up on him.
Nah, but there's even at times where I think a player should be starting over me. Like, to be honest, like, but like I said, Fabian knows how to balance. Each line is there's no going wrong. It's like you could take the first line out, the second line might even look better. Third line, it's really just switching lines, and there's no real difference.
When you say that, it's one of the things that I think about, and we talked about it watching the game, of how consistent all of your lines are both ways, right? That it's not like just like overwhelmingly offensive or defensive. What do you think it is that you all do that makes your team successful on the offensive end and on the defensive end equally?
I think the whole key priority and objective this whole season was mainly defense, because we know everybody on the court on our team is capable of scoring. Like, we have players all around who are more than likely gonna score. So that's really never a concern. It's just more of a defensive thing at the end of the day that we really focus. And I think it's really shown this whole season. I think we got the fewest amount of goals against.
Yep.
Even our keepers, we don't let them get we don't let the other teams get shots off. So it might seem like our keepers are not up there in the stats, but that just shows to our defensive thing that they don't even have to make saves because we don't let the shots get off. And that's why I'm saying, like, that defensive priority is key, because we know there's no issue with the offense. The goals are going to come regardless. We really focus on the defense this whole season.
Yeah, I mean, you could tell. It's one of the things we talk about all the time. When we finally got all of the statistics up, it was surprising to see the Ole keepers being so high, because they don't get a lot of opportunities to make saves because of the defensive commitment. And so it's really interesting hearing you say that now and then seeing how that all played out in the season, because it's just like it really is a testament to the work that you all did. Yeah,
like even having lines, with the rotations, it's the same for the keepers. Like, one goalie, you're gonna get a half, the other goalie is gonna get his half. So it all matters. Like, that just shows to the quality of players we have, even in goal. Like, those guys at practice, they get into it. Like, even Josh coming into the team this season, I think it pushed Frankie and Andres even a bit more. Because they're like, oh, this guy, like, I think he's coming for my spot, and I think he's really improved, like, so much. Like, first day at practice, I didn't really know him first year meeting him, but he's really improved, like I said, and it's really shown these past couple games too. But it's just gonna take time for him to accustom to our play style.
Yeah. So
I think just having quality all around is gonna push players to want to perform better.
Do you have any, probably last question on the season, and then we'll shift our focus to the game that's to come. So that's that semifinal. Do you have like a personal favorite, like, moment or moments that, like, maybe it was you on the ball or a play that you were involved with that you recall from the season?
I think it was just I think probably that Ginga game. I was just scoring nonstop, and we had I think we went into the half tied, and I gave the ball away and they scored, and I was just like beating myself up about it, and the guys were just like, don't worry about it, bro. Like, you're gonna get yours, you're gonna get a hat trick, it's coming, don't even worry about it. And I was still beating myself up, because those things, like, are gonna stick to me, because I know I'm gonna get some feedback from my friends as soon as the game's over, like, hey man, you gave up that, just not even scoring the goals. It's really if I know I'm gonna score, I'm just like, oh, what celebration should I do today? That's really how it is. So I think that game I was just doing a bunch of celebrations, because I'm like, 5, all right, what am I gonna do now? What celebration should I do? So I usually get ideas from my friends or teammates. Yeah.
Do you have like a go-to celebration that's like your rock steady?
Yeah, I think last year I was just doing like a bow and arrow, just like a kill shot. Yeah.
Well, is it a thing that Sammy always does, the Cole Palmer?
I think he just started that this season, which I don't like. I'm not a Chelsea fan.
Oh no! All right, we end it now. End the stream. It's over. Yeah. All right, look, some rapid take questions before we move on to the game.
Yeah.
All right, so look, one word. Okay. All right, you ready? Yeah. One word. Sammy or Lito?
Are you
And
kidding me, brother?
It's from the chat. You know, I gotta make the fans happy. Give them what they want.
Samuel Lito,
Samir Lito.
I'll give it a Lito just for the
Lito,
seniority
okay.
and even more experience, to be honest.
All right, biggest fan. Who's your biggest fan?
My biggest fan,
One word.
Caesar.
Oh, okay. All right, describe Fabian. One word.
Genius.
Ooh, genius. Love it.
Was that all?
That was it. I mean, that's it. Hey, look, that's chat. Look, you give the questions and we deliver the answers, or better, Aaron delivers
He
the
did.
answers.
Yes, he did. So let's move on to the upcoming game. We got just about 5 or 10 minutes left with Aaron Gamez here. So if you got any more questions, go ahead and throw them in the chat, and we'll see if we can get to them. So upcoming game, you guys are hosting Detroit Imperial. What do you think is? And the question I wrote down was, like, what's the key to, you guys stopping what Imperial is trying to do? But then I go, well, you guys have won 9 in a row, and it's like, if you guys just play your game, like, we haven't really seen anybody, like, beat you guys just playing your game. So with that in mind, with what you guys anticipate Detroit Imperial doing, what are you guys focusing on to try to, minimize it, whatever they're trying to throw at you? Like we talked about before we came on this podcast, this is playoff time. It's win or go home. It's like, you throw everything else out the window because this is the only game that matters now. What are you guys trying to, what would be the keys to stopping what they're going to try to bring against you?
If anything, just go back to that key priority, defense. And I think we're going to have to switch that game plan to we know Davide is going to be on the ball 90% of the time for Imperial. So it's really going to be just getting him out of the game as much as possible. Like we try to do with, or we did with Jeremy and Lanson. Because we know, like, as soon as you get that key player out of the game, it's just going to build that much pressure onto those other players from that opposing team. But, like, that's what speaks to our lines. Like, we have too much quality on all our 3 lines where it's just, it doesn't matter who you lock up, or at least you think you locked up, because that's just going to expose those other 3 players to do what we already know they're capable of, which is scoring eventually. Like I said, you could get Sammy out of the game. That's just going to put me or Chris Mendez and Lito more involved. Or you could take me out of the game. That's going to put those other 3 more involved. It doesn't really matter. I really do think it is going to come down to defense and just staying calm and not give up silly fouls, because at the end of the day, like, you don't want to give up that 6 foul PK, and who knows if it's who knows if it's going to be a close game or not, so we just want to stay composed.
Yeah, it's one of the things that happened this last game against Lansing City. You all had 5 fouls really quick in the second half, and then it was something that you actually mentioned during the stream, that you all played so composed for so long, not giving up that 6 PK until, like, real late.
Yeah, you see, like, that's the last thing you want. It probably seemed like the game was already out of reach, but they scored 3 goals in less than, or almost a minute. They turned the game, and that's what scary about futsal. You could have a 5-goal lead, and a team can quickly score in 3 goals in a minute. So it's all about staying focused and not giving up those fouls, because they're going to accumulate eventually.
So last couple questions. If you had an opportunity to give a piece of advice to maybe an aspiring futsal player, we have this FCS Futures League that's coming, and I know Grand Rapids Ole, you guys have had youth for a long time. If you had to, send a message, look someone in the eye that's an aspiring, futsal player that wants to be in your shoes someday, that wants to play for Ole and the FCS, what kind of advice and encouragement would you give?
Start early, really, when it comes to futsal. Start early, because it really does help bring out the individuality of a player, even their creativities when it comes on the ball and tight spaces. Like, that's what really shows how they're gonna grow into the player they're gonna show out to be. But I think it is important to start off young, because it really did help me a lot. And then let's say like you're not playing futsal during the summer because it's outdoor season at that, and it really does help, like breaking a player or two on, and doing wall passes. It may seem so easy in futsal, but and then you go over to that 11 field, it's just a whole different vibe and a whole different game. But it really does help, and I really do think players and parents should start their kids off when it comes to football. So benefit, especially when they're in Michigan. We don't play in the winter, so it really at least keep them on the ball during the winter, play foot, and it's really helped me. And I think Grand Rapids in general is like a hot spot when it comes to futsal. We have so many leagues, teams, facilities. Now we're having like tournaments there every other couple months. So it's really growing, and I think it really does help. He's going to grow out and show he's going to be a better player.
Speaking of Grand Rapids, it's one of the questions that Juan had in the chat. What do you want to see, from Grand Rapids that hasn't happened yet with futsal?
What do I want to see with Grand Rapids that's yet to happen?
Yeah, not specifically Ole, but like just thinking about Grand Rapids as like a hotbed for futsal, and so much growth has happened there. You're talking about all these tournaments. Like for you, your perspective, what would you want to see next in the growth of futsal in Grand Rapids?
As far as right now, I think it's already going in a great direction.
Mm-hmm.
We have we just opened up some futsal courts downtown Grand Rapids. They're called we call them it's called Las Canchas, the courts in Spanish. So everybody goes there during the week, and sometimes I go too. We go during the week. We set up a time, date. We have, I think it's like 4 courts there.
That's awesome.
Outdoor futsal and street soccer, and we have tournaments there. But like I said, I think that was missing in the community. But now that we have it, we just had it. Like, it really does like help people who probably never played the sport before just get more intrigued and like, I want to try it.
Yep.
So, like I said, I already think it's going in a perfect direction. But like what you guys are doing now with the youth, trying to set up the youth league, I think it's just gonna go in a great direction for the league in general and in the future.
Well, that's awesome. Last question, and then we'll send you on your way. If you were talking with somebody and they were like, "Yeah, I'm thinking about tuning in to watch the game," or "I'm thinking about coming to watch the game on Sunday," you guys hosting Detroit Imperial, and you had to look at them and be like, "Hey, this is why you should watch." Like, they asked you, "Why should I watch your guys' game? Why should I come in, and watch you guys on Sunday?" What would you say?
I say you're probably gonna miss like the best game of the season. So I think that game, nobody's gonna miss it. To be honest, like if you have already been in tune throughout the whole season, I think everybody's looking forward to that semifinal more. And I think it's just gonna, the crowd, the energy, our home fans, is just gonna hype us up even more. And I think no one's gonna want to miss. It's gonna be a great game.
Follow-up bonus question: what can, if they ask you, what can we expect from Ole on Sunday? What would you say?
A dub. A dub. A win. That's all I can say.
He says it's a win, and that's how we're going to end the segment with Aaron Gamez. Thanks so much for joining us, Aaron. We really appreciate you coming to Lansing, being here with us, and joining the podcast.
I appreciate it, guys. Thank you for having me, and I'm looking forward to this weekend and hopefully make it to the final.
Yeah, well, we're hoping that we're looking forward to being there. We plan to be there for that game. Detroit Imperial traveling to Grand Rapids, the MSA Sports Spot, to take on number 1 seed Grand Rapids Ole. They have not lost a game all season. They have not won a game since the very first game. They're on a 9-game win streak, and we're going to see Detroit Imperial is going to try to challenge that and stamp their own brand on the FCS playoffs. While Grand Rapids Ole will be trying to continue that undefeated season and make it all the way to the finals. So we're going to take a quick break, say goodbye to Aaron, and then we're going to be back with a little preview of the upcoming games.
Before you push the button.
Before I push the button.
Yeah, I mean, the chat's dying to know. Final score of the game, and who's your favorite teammate?
Guess who asked the question?
Final score of the game. Well, if we stick to our game plan defense, I feel like we already going to get a shutout. I think we're winning 6-0. 6-0, comfortably.
Favorite teammate?
Favorite teammate? I'll say Andres. Andres.
All right.
He brings the energy, every game. He's just so loud. He's the whole vibe of the team.
All right.
Love it.
You heard it here
Love
first. Andres Montez is the favorite teammate of Aaron Gamez. There you go. Well, thank you so much for joining us again, and thank you for joining us during this time. Again, we're going to have a quick break, and then we're going to just very quickly preview the upcoming games on Saturday and Sunday. So don't go anywhere.
Committing a crime so you can try to escape from prison. Bad idea. Go into the pod escape room to play an escape game with your friends. Great idea. Test your skill as an astronaut in outer space. Find Santa in Save Christmas. Or take a vacation to an abandoned island. Just don't get stuck there. The Pod Escape Room. Learn more at thepodlansing.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Third Half podcast by the FCS Live team, sponsored by the Pod Escape Room and Ally Marketing. I'm Jared Klepp along with Gerard Scani. We just had a couple of great segments with Michael Forbes of Detroit Imperial and Aaron Gamez of Grand Rapids Ole. So if you missed those, go back, take a look at them, and hear their thoughts about their team's respective journeys getting to where they are today. Those two teams are going to meet on Sunday, but also, before
Saturday.
we preview that one, on Saturday, it's going to be Midwest United hosting Ginga FS in the 2-versus-3 game. Gerard, what are you expecting from this one?
You know, a lot of it depends on who shows up for Ginga. So that's one of the things when we had Giuliani on the show, we didn't even know who's going to be in goal for them. And that's a huge question mark because Corey Wisenhunt was really stellar in goal for them early in the season, but then he kind of disappeared over the last 5-6 games of the season. And then Kosuke Tamisawa was here, and he was doing great work, and he's somebody that they were depending on and trusting. And now he's gone.
Yeah.
He's back in Japan. And so depending on who they have, and, you know, honestly, Giuliani had mentioned Wes Rasdorf as a possible option.
Yeah.
And, you know.
And Gabe Clark was
and
the
Gabe
other one.
Clark
Yeah,
was
which
another
we
one.
We saw him. I think he actually, if I remember right, he split time with Wisenhunt.
Yeah, but he only had a couple of games. And so
both of them did.
Yeah. And so Corey had 4 games. It didn't seem like he had a lot, but he played in 4 games.
Okay.
Yeah, and Gabe only, I think he had 2.
Okay.
Yeah, and so like that's the part that for me is probably like the biggest question mark is thinking about. Actually, Gabe had 3.
Okay.
He had 3 halves, and
Gotcha.
that's what. So a lot of the teams they split just like just like Aaron was just talking about with Ole.
Yeah.
A lot of teams split. So even though Gabe played 3 games, it was really only 1.5 games because he played 60 minutes. Right. And so when you think about, you just lost Tamisawa, who had played 208 minutes for them.
Yeah.
Right, across
The
7
vast
games.
majority
Exactly.
in the
Yeah,
keeper
so he
spot
was
for them.
playing all of the games. He was their only keeper
Yeah.
for the vast majority of games, except for like one, you know, small sample from Wes Rasdorf, who that was somebody that Satoru said he wanted to develop as a future goalkeeper.
Yeah. Who didn't have. He said that there wasn't a lot of like previous experience.
Exactly.
You know, and so and we saw that when he came into the game against Lansing.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a big factor. Who plays, you know, who's in goal for Ginga, what kind of team shows up. We've seen them be 2 different teams on the road and at home, both in how they play and who they bring.
Yeah, and when you think about just head-to-head against Midwest United, they won the game at home, and then they lost the game on the road. And the difference was really the players that they brought and who in the court size. So that was the other difference.
Yeah.
Similar in a lot of ways, similar to that conversation we talked about earlier with Futsal Sala, where Detroit Imperial plays. But the court that Ginga played on against Midwest United was really tiny.
Yeah.
Like it was
really
not
small.
their normal court, and so it was really small, and it was a completely different game. And so when you think about now, last time they played Midwest United, it was in Aquinas, which is where this game is. I think it's going to be.
Yep.
Same spot. And Midwest United, one of the things that, so I know we're talking a lot about Ginga, but Midwest United, they have a really high level of creativity on their team, so they take full advantage of that court size. And so, again, there's going to be a lot of pressure on Ginga to maintain their structure defensively to stop that attack of Midwest United.
And it seems like that's what they've leaned on all year is defensive play and kind of starting from that base. And you mentioned it, the last time these two teams met at Aquinas, you know, Midwest United, it didn't look like the scoreline actually flip-flopped a few times. It was like it was no more than like a goal or so. But then as the game went on, West United pulled away. And, you know, and then so it's like, you know, who does Ginga bring? I think when I think about this game this weekend, I think, I think it's for Ginga to be in the playoffs is a bit of a surprise, right? I think from the first perspective, right, when we talked with Giuliani, and it's like their goal was, they're newcomers in the league and they're trying to take the next step. And here they are in the playoffs as a number 3 seed, right?
Yep.
So they win for them in the playoffs would be another huge step. That'd be great for them. I feel like Midwest United I feel like they have unfinished business, right? They got to the finals last year and lost. And not only that, but they have been silently doing what needs to be done to be the 2nd seed, to be a solid team, 2nd most points, have a home court advantage, and all of that, it feels like it's overshadowed by the Red Grand Rapids team.
Yeah, and that's what I personally would love to see, a final between Midwest and Grand Rapids Ole for the battle for Grand Rapids. Like, that would be something. And one of the things, and so Aaron mentioned this when we asked him, actually Caesar asked him this about the top 5 1v1 defenders, and he said Daniel De Leon. De Leon's one of my favorite players to watch in the league, not because of his defense ability, which he has a strong defensive ability, but it's for his creativity. He's leading the league in assists, and it's not just easy like back post assists. Like, these are some incredible passes that he's setting up his teammates for, and you can see how one of the things that Daniel does really well is he understands how to pass the ball to create an opportunity for his teammate. So it's not just passing to somebody that's open and is going to tap it in the back of the net. Like, he's actually playing the ball into space and pushing his teammate to get the goal. And so one of the things that I would be looking for to break down that Ginga defense is that creative play. And one of the people that takes advantage of that the most is one of their top goal scorers is Isaiah Meyer. And so Isaiah Meyer, he's a trustworthy, dependable player. You see him all over the court for doing all of the hard work and doing everything, but he scores too. And so those are 2 players to really keep your eye out this week.
Anthony Leon, Fikret Hasovic.
Yeah, I mean,
Daniel
really,
De
they
Leon,
have so
Isaiah
many.
Meyer.
Yeah,
I mean, those are the 4 that I think of.
Yeah.
You know, and I think we usually see that be the starting 4: Anthony Leon, Isaiah Meyer, Daniel De Leon, Fikret Hasovic, Jose Vicario in goal. You know, I think how this game begins could have a really big impact, and that kind of goes without saying. I mean, it's like the starting tempo, the first goal in each half is huge. And last time it felt like there was a kind of a back and forth, and Ginga was around for a while, and then Midwest kind of took it away. And you know, with it being it's a playoff game, every other game is out the window. Do you think that Ginga hangs around like they did before and they make a push, or do you think that Midwest takes this one handily?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we've seen consistently from Ginga is that on the road they don't bring more than 2 lines of players. Midwest United consistently has 3 lines, and one of the things that we've seen when we have one team with 3 lines and one team with 2 lines is just that the team with 2 lines wears out over time. So Ginga with 2 lines against Ole maintained equal playing with them for the first half on Grand Rapids Ole home court, but second half fell apart, and it was they just blew them out. And so when you think about that, I would expect the same type of thing against Midwest United. First half is going to be really tight, and Ginga's going to play really strong. And second half, Midwest United is just going to blow them out.
Before I had a thought, but what do you think the scoreline will be?
7-3.
7-3, Midwest United moves on to the finals. I think it's interesting. We've talked about this before because it's come up about teams sticking around for like the first half or the first part of the game.
Yep.
And you talk about fitness, talk about fatigue. That seems to be kind of like the obvious factor. And I do think that plays a factor in the amount of players you have, amount of lines. But I don't think it's the biggest factor. I look at the games that many teams played against Midwest, who were very clearly, out of their league this year. And there was similar things happening in those games. And I know that the difference between them and the other teams was not just fitness. I think there is an element, and I don't really know how to describe this exactly, and I could be totally wrong, but it's just something that I'm like sensing from what's happening in the game. Is it seems like there's a time where the teams are settling into the game. I know people say that in sports, like, oh, a team is settling into the game, figuring things out. It seems like this happens, and then whether it's a half or whether it's 10 minutes or whatever it is, once that settling happens, then it's like, okay, now we clearly see, because like the part of the game after it went back and forth, it was very clear who the better team was.
So it's interesting. Michael Forbes pointed this out, and it's funny because he talked about how he got into soccer was playing FIFA, and so I'll play FIFA and I'll play online against people, and I'll stay with them in the game for first
Gonna
half.
challenge anybody? What's your gamer tag?
Yeah, like for the first 45, 50 minutes of the game, I'll beat anybody, right? I'll be right there neck and neck. But the second half is when I fall apart, and it goes into what Michael Forbes said. So I think it's a little bit deeper, and I think it is connected to what we're talking about, and this is why we see a team like Midwest do it. And what Michael Forbes talked about was he talked about that composure. And when I asked about what he meant with composure, because I'm like, I don't see what you're seeing, he talked about all of those little decisions. And a lot of times we don't see it. And so a team like Midwest that doesn't have the same level of skill as Ole or the same level of skill as Lansing City, but they can hang with them for 15, 20 minutes at the beginning of the game, is because they're able to keep that mental fortitude for that level of time before they start to break down and before the pressure gets to them, right? And so it's one of the same things that allows me to be successful for small segments of time in FIFA or in FC, but then over time I lose it because I'm not able to keep up that level of play. And so even though we know that a team like Midwest is not in the same class as Grand Rapids Ole, the reason that Ole doesn't score 15 goals in the first 5 minutes is because Midwest is able to mentally meet the challenges of Ole for the first 5-10 minutes of the game before they're not able to keep up, right? And so it's not just a physical fitness of only having two lines, it's that mental fitness too, and that's what Michael Forbes was talking about. And so it was really interesting to hear him to say that, because a lot of times we can't see that, right? You can't see the mental game as it's happening. But when you go back, and it'll be interesting to watch this week as we learn some of these types of things of how the game's playing out, of trying to look for some of those details of what does Ginga do early that makes them successful that they don't do later. Because a lot of times the difference between a goal in futsal and a wild or errant shot or a block shot is 1 or 2 steps of the defender. And if mentally you're not prepared to know, like, okay, I need to follow this offensive player in this moment, if you just half a second late, that's a goal as opposed to your body being in the way blocking it.
Yeah. I mean, those are the kinds of things that happen in futsal all the time. It's so we talk about that. It exposes you. There's nowhere you can hide, and it's like every moment is vital because it's so close to giving up a goal, that sort of thing. I'd have to agree with you as far as how I think the scoreline is going to end out. I think Midwest United is going to take this one. I'm thinking it's going to be more of a 9-2, 9-3 game in favor of Midwest United. I think they might get some more goals based on the goalkeeper situation of Ginga, but we'll see. We'll see what Ginga brings, and that leads us to game number 2, the number 1 seed hosting number 4 Grand Rapids Ole and Detroit Imperial at the MSA Sports Spot, Sunday 5:30 p.m. What are you looking at in this one?
Yeah, so again, we've talked about it a lot here, is really like that mental aspect of Detroit Imperial. What team shows up? And so when you think about the first time that they played Ole at Futsal Sala, the first, roughly 10 minutes of that game, Detroit Imperial played outstanding futsal. They played outstanding, and they had complete control of the game, and then it fell apart after that. And so if they can bring that level of physicality, that level of composure, and maintain it throughout. So we were just talking about that, and that's one of the challenges that Detroit Imperials had, is they haven't had their full assortment of players available for all of their games this season, and so they're having a lot of interchanging lines. So who shows up? In the same way we talk about it for Ginga, who shows up for Imperial? So we don't know exactly how it's going to work out. One of the things that I'm really excited to see is Mena in goal and Michael Forbes in the field. And the reason I'm really excited about that, because Michael Forbes is an amazing goalkeeper, but I think he brings an element to Imperial that they don't have with anyone else on that team defensively. And he has that ability as a goalkeeper. But when you have Emerson in goal, which he's probably the best shot stopper in the league by far, and then you put Michael Forbes back there, and if you play him at Fixo and somebody that understands the defensive element and like what to do and where to be as well, like they can lock down Ole, because a lot of times what we see of Ole is focusing on the defensive end, and they're like trusting just to like get goals. They're focusing defensively. Well, if Imperial can shut that down and put defensive effort and kind of like match that intensity of Ole, well, wow, we're going to have a barn burner.
I mean, I definitely think Detroit Imperial is going to bring intensity. I mean, you know that they're going to want to win this game. They always do, and there's a history of sparks flying between these two teams, and that adds an element of randomness to the game. It adds an element of passion to the game. Aaron talked about the location and fans coming. Ole is going to show out. A bunch of fans is going to be heavily favored towards them. Those are some of the things I think about. When you're talking about the goalkeeper situation for Detroit Imperial, Emerson Mena, Michael Forbes, I agree that Michael Forbes brings something to them that I think is unique. And when he's in goal and when he's a part of that team, and I think even it's easier to see when you are watching it in person. It's been a bit since I've seen him, in person at a game. The ones that I've been at, I don't think he's been there for a bit, but when he's there on the court and you see the dynamic and how he interacts with players and even fans and stuff like that, he brings something. But the problem with what you're talking about is with all due respect to his skill as a goalkeeper, he's not a court player, right? We saw it in the last game that when they tried to put him on the court, it was it's not for a lack of effort, right? He tries very hard. He is a very good goalkeeper, and he was talking about it even in trainings. He's like, I'm not at this level, and that creates a big problem, on a futsal court when you have someone like that, and that's really tough because you have an asset that you want to use, but on the court, I think it becomes not an asset anymore for them. And that's something that's tough for them to kind of work out with him and Emerson. And we'll see what call Pierce Brannigan makes for Sunday.
Yeah, we will. One of the things, going back to the last game that Imperial played against Midwest United, one of the moments that sparked a change when Midwest United was down was Cole Russell coming on as a fifth attacker. And it's one of the things Michael Forbes was talking about, that 5-0. So if we see a moment where Ole goes up and it's late and they need it, we know that Michael Forbes is a fantastic attacker as a goalie. So letting him play much more aggressive, flying with Depoche in there to create some of that defensive protection in the back, that'll be fun to watch.
What do you think? We talk about the sparks that fly between these two teams. We've seen Grand Rapids Ole do some work of what seems to be antagonizing a little bit. What do you expect in that regard between these teams?
Yeah, so it's funny. So we were talking earlier about Sammy Esquivel and Davide Depoche. They're two of the top performers in assist and goals. But they're also two of the top performers in fouls, So it's like both sides of the coin, right? Yeah. They're both two players that capture the attention of the fans and the officials. And so for me, what I think about is which one of them is going to be able to maintain their composure. Yeah. And in a lot of ways, which one of them is going to be able to influence the other. And I think that those are going to be the two differentiators that I'll be looking for in the game, to see who is influencing who, because I think those are two of the people that will be the biggest kind of tone setters, not only for the team, for each of their teams, but for the fans too.
Yeah. Who do you think takes this game, and what do you think the scoreline is?
Ole takes the game, and the scoreline will be 8-5.
8-5. 8-5 in favor of Ole. What do you think is the difference in the game?
The difference in the game is really going to be Ole's commitment to defense. So it's one of the things that, and we heard Aaron talk about this on the smaller court size, the difference going to the larger court size, really about the flow of the game. And one of the things that we've seen really consistently, and Michael talked about this as well, was Detroit Imperial is really great with the quick passes that lead to the goal, right, on the shorter court. When they get into the larger court with a team like Ole, they have to run more plays. They have to break down that defense, and they haven't demonstrated an ability to do that, right? That's the part for me that's lacking, that we haven't seen from them all season, is an ability to create opportunities that don't just happen because of a steal or transition.
Yeah. this game we have defending NFPL champs, defending FCS champs, and only one of those teams has looked like a defending champion this year.
Yeah.
Only one of those teams. Grand Rapids Ole has 100% looked like a defending champion, and Detroit Imperial hasn't. They've looked like two different teams on small courts and big courts. The games that they've won on the small courts, it's their home court. It's where they practice. They know how to play on a court like that, and the game is much more chaotic, more transitional, more ball going out of bounds, things happening, and that doesn't happen on the big court. And I think Ole takes care of business on the big court. The one thing that I think Detroit Imperial brings an intensity and a passion to the game. We talked about the history of sparks flying and who keeps their composure. That could be a factor in the game. We talked with Aaron Gamez about the red card that he got in that first one. Something like that. It obviously changed the game. That was at Imperial when Depoche went out. So things like that happen. It's kind of like all bets are off. Like now, if you're playing a man down, dealing with momentum and things like that. I mean, it's that's a huge thing. So if that's kind of like the question mark for me, like you mentioned, is the composure, is the intensity, and sometimes with that Imperial brings, you kind of feel like anything could happen.
Yeah, because one of the things that Aaron talked about is that in the past, Ole has had composure issues, and they've learned from it. And we haven't seen any really lack of composure from them this year. But outside of that first game, we haven't really seen a lot of tests from that, right, from the composure standpoint. And so if Imperial puts some pressure on them early, maybe goes up by a goal or two, and, there's a little chippiness that starts, how does Ole respond?
Yeah, I really do think that this game is I think it's in Ole's hands. I think they have the better team. I think they have if they stay composed and they don't make silly mistakes and they don't get any bad favor from the referees or anything like that, I think they're going to be able to take this one. And I think it won't be without a fight from Detroit Imperial for sure. I think that's one thing that we can count on is that Imperial is going to come in and they're going to put a fight in this one. Sure.
Yeah, no matter what the scoreline turns out, both teams are going to give everything they have. That's the one thing that we have seen consistently from both of these teams week in and week out, really from all of the teams in the league. Like, they put everything out there, which is what makes it so much fun to watch.
And we'll see if the games go as we expect or totally different. We'll see. Right now, based on the predictions, we're expecting a Grand Rapids clash for the finals. We'll see if that happens. The only one way to find out, and that is for the games to be played Saturday, March 22nd, 6 p.m. at Aquinas. If you want to get there, that's where it's going to be at. And if you want to tune in, our coverage is there goes my pen. Our coverage is going to start right around 5:30 on that day. And then on Sunday, March 23rd, it's going to be Grand Rapids Ole hosting Detroit Imperial. That is a 5:30 kickoff. All coverage will start right around 5 p.m. Who do you think is going to win? Our current poll in the chat has 79% for Ole over Imperial this Sunday. We didn't do a poll last week. We should have for the other game. But I don't know. Where do you think the percentage would have landed? I feel like it might have been a little more in the
probably,
middle.
I think it would have been pretty similar.
Pretty similar.
Yeah.
Pretty similar. Well, we're going to find out how these games turn out for the FCS semifinals. We're finally here. Just a few days away. You excited?
Excited.
So excited. We're excited to bring you guys all that action this weekend. You're not going to want to miss it, and we'll be back next week on the third half to talk about the finals coming up, and there's going to be no break. It's going to be right to the finals a week from Saturday. So thank you so much for tuning in to the Third Half podcast today. I'm Jared Kleppel along with Gerard Ascani, the FCS Live team. We hope you enjoyed your time here, and good night.
Committing a crime so you can try to escape from prison. Bad idea. Go into the pod escape room to play an escape game with your friends. Great idea. Test your skill as an astronaut in outer space. Find Santa in Save Christmas. Or take a vacation to an abandoned island. Just don't get stuck there. The Pod Escape Room. Learn more at thepodlansing.com.